Today we visit the Frerichs Farm near Wilmot, South Dakota. For generations, these guys have been raising high-quality soybeans. You know, so much goes into every single seed they put into the ground with the hopes that Mother Nature will cooperate, and after a few long months and a lot of hard work, a fruitful harvest will be the result. Let's take a closer look at the equipment and planning necessary to get that soybean crop into the ground and off to a great start.
Yeah, we could take a look in the sprayer if you want anything, or it's
I just think it's cool. I
walk around it. Yeah, this is all a different setup than the pull-type sprayer that I was using. Now I should have gloves on if I was actually loading it and everything, but we can put any jugs in here. Otherwise, most of it will come right through the main hose where we have our tender trailer. So we have cone setups.
Yep.
Key with these sprayers, and that's as anything that has a pump, can't run it dry, so we until we start running water into the machine, then you turn the pump on, and we're able to agitate everything in there. And so by the time, it'd probably take about 15 minutes, depending on how quick we can load our products in the tender trailer, to pump the water in and be off and spraying. And this one here, we could do about 80 acres, 100 acres, 80 to 100 acres in a load.
Yeah.
They like us to recycle those jugs if we can, and South Dakota Department of Ag has a nice program where they will, you got to get them to a site. I think if you had enough, they'd come by and pick them up. But they will take those jugs in and recycle them and make them into pallets or whatever it is.
Wide is this?
This is 120 feet wide.
So when you're 120 feet wide, what you're doing over here isn't always what you're doing over there.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to shove one in the ground.
Right. So what actually controls that height?
So with this, there's sensors out there. There should be 5 sensors, and so a couple out on each boom, middle.
Yep.
And that way.
And that just automatically.
They can tell where the ground is at.
Exactly, because you also want to be.
We like to kind of get around 30 inches or so above the crop. Our whole goal is to get very even coverage, because the weeds nowadays, probably more so because of a strong use of more of just Roundup or glyphosate products over the years, they're tougher to kill, and so that's why we tank mix in various products that
more specific for.
And not always are those products going to be most gentle on the crop, and so sometimes soybeans get a little bronze color, but it doesn't kill them. It just might set them back for just a little bit, but at least the weeds are able to be eliminated, and then let those soybeans take off. We keep track of our total gallons we would load. So if we loaded 750 gallons in here, then we'd have be able to keep track, and it'll count down as we load. We can set a rate. When I ran a sprayer in learning, we had a light bar out on the hood. We had foam markers. But the light bar wasn't always working, and sometimes the foam.
So you hope you can see the foam? I've done that. Absolutely.
But if it's a hot day, you'd go around the field and your foam would probably be gone, and so you wouldn't have it for the outside. Years ago, there was a bad problem of wild sunflowers around here. My dad had talked about them, where if you didn't get them killed early, they just take off and they canopy over the corn and everything else, and you would see those, and we still see some areas. But another place we see, one time my dad had put like 10 acres of sweet clover in because it was part of like a soil bank program or something that just set aside, and he put that in because it's good for the soil. There's still to this day, we can see on some maps at times where that sweet clover was planted 30 years ago.
obviously you guys have your hands full with a couple of little ones. You have a career and an off-the-farm job. It's got to be tough to balance all of that for you as well.
It is tough.
Oftentimes the girls will be able to come with me and be out on the farm, whether we're working with the cattle or in the fields. And then sometimes Ashley will come join us and check up on everything.
Right, and it's not always, sometimes farming time is family time, right?
For sure.
And that's part of the blessing of living and working on a production agriculture is you get to bring your kids up in that too. And that's, I know for me that's something that was a goal of me and my wife, and it's extremely important to teach our kids about hard work and the responsibilities of taking care of cattle and other lives. And I think that it's just really conducive to raising healthy and good kids, and I'm sure you guys are seeing that as well.
Yeah. There's always work to be done, but at the same time, the more we can intertwine all of that. Obviously, it's hard. You don't want your work to overcome everything else at home, but it is unique in terms of a family farm and ranch operation where we make that all work. And it's important for me. I usually spend the mornings. That's my time that I get to take the girls in, and then Ashley picks them up in the afternoons, and so try to share in some of those responsibilities if we can. But in terms of just trying to find the correct balance of being able to take care of the busy times and then get back in at home. And I know I'm always trying to update Ashley and say, well, I'm going to be in, and sometimes it isn't right away. And but really trying to make those times count as well, though, when we do have a break in the action. And so we're 6 feet wider on this planter compared to the corn planter. And this could be used for corn planting.
Say, what would you have to do to change it over?
So to change it over to corn is really, and see there's a few
treated soybeans in there.
Yeah, you can look at those from last year. So we don't have actually we take the plates out for the winter time, but there's just a difference in the plate.
Okay.
That we would set, and then usually on this door over here, there's a little adjustment we'll make.
Okay.
But it's very minimal. You can switch to corn, between corn and soybeans real quick. There's a sensor in the middle here, in this plastic seed tube that comes out obviously in the furrow. That sensor will read every time a seed drops.
Okay.
So we will put, somewhere in between 120 to 140,000 seeds per acre. As we're moving through the field with this, we're gonna hopefully put.
It'll monitor that as you're.
Yeah, and we can plant, 35, 40 acres an hour.
Wow.
And so it'll keep track of every seed. Now, on the soybeans, it's so many that it may miss a few.
Sure.
But you can tell if there's something going on. And what could happen is, let's say you got a chunk of dirt or mud up in the seed tube to plug it.
And then they back up.
Going around the corner, and this side come back and dug in the ground a little bit.
Yep.
It'd plug up and not plant. So then it's going to right away beep at me and say,
hey, so
row one, you better go check. Again, with these sensors, sometimes we just have to ignore them. And so what we'll do there, if it's just not reading proper, that's very
sort of
minimal.
like the check engine light on your pickup. Sometimes your engine's fine. It's just the O2 sensor on the exhaust, and you just keep going.
Just got to go.
Yeah.
But then you constantly live throughout that day. If you're going to just turn it off, you're always wondering, is it really planting?
Right.
And so you get out and you'll scratch down and make sure that row is still working. So we're 22 inches wide, whereas the corn planters that we use for planting corn are 30 inches wide spacing. So we're just a little bit narrower. We like that for soybeans because then they can start to canopy and fill the ground and obviously keep any of the weeds suppressed. Everything else is pretty similar here. So we have the depth on how deep the soybeans are usually planted just a little bit little shallower than corn. So around an inch somewhere between an inch below the ground. And so with this setup here now, we have actually air adjusted closing wheels. And so in the monitor, we can set how strong that the trench is being closed.
Sure.
Whereas on the other one, the other corn planter, it was all manual adjusted. It still has 3 vacuum systems that are all hydraulically powered. Again, one other thing I didn't point out is it has pneumatic downforce, and so again, another thing we can adjust in the cab. And so these are all hydraulic driven, and so that puts pressure on each row. So
for opening the furrow.
We have actually 2 tied together. Maybe these 2 lined up with where we had run the grain cart the previous year to combine corn, and they need to push harder to get that seed into the ground at the right depth. These 2 will push harder. These might be at 400 pounds or 300 and some pounds pressure, whereas over here, if this was off the, where there wasn't any compaction, then it might be only 200. So with these tanks, we'll usually load about 2,000 pounds on each side is what I try to shoot for. And they, and each unit is always different based on the seed size of the soybeans. And so anyways, we usually have try to have 80 to 100 acres of seed in the planter at one time when we load, provided it's not really wet field conditions to get through. But you can see in here that we have grates that we've purchased that help to keep any foreign objects that may have been in the soybean seed.
Sure.
Perhaps sticks, that didn't get sorted out. They shouldn't be in there, but maybe if the seed cleaning didn't catch those. Or we have conveyors and little rubber paddles will come off. If those would get into the hoses, we'd have a plugged line.
Plug it up.
And so these grates really save a lot.
Save some time.
They've been
so when you get this full, you'll be able to plant for a couple hours without refilling it?
Yeah, if everything works well, 2-3 hours when it's all filled up. Depending on the field size, maybe we had to move. We still have a number of 40-acre fields.
Right.
But on average, our fields should be in that 60 to 80 acres in the range as far as once we go. So it is nice where you can usually load up, get a field done, maybe move to another one and then refill. And it's really something we do by ourselves usually. Not that I wouldn't mind help, but it's, as I mentioned, the talc that we will use. We looked at the soybean-based talc. This is just the run-of-the-mill regular talc that we'll use. So as we are putting the soybeans in the tank, we'll just sprinkle the talc with them to help it flow. And there is a gauge in there that will help, so we know when I'm down to about 5 to 10 acres left of seed in the tank, get an alarm, so then you know you better be looking to fill. This just has a lot more weight back here in the whole system. It's just a really little different style of planting, but these are our row cleaners, and so as we're going through the field, they will just kind of push any debris, corn stalks or anything, just kind of get them out of the way so the seed gets a nice good spot in the soil. Right, and then again, these we can adjust also from the cab of the tractor. That hasn't always been the case. This planter was new for us last year, and we had all these features last year for the first time. And did you see that made a big difference in just getting things done, or just maybe made the field a little more evenly planted? I think efficiency, because you wouldn't have to get out and manually adjust some things. But yeah, it was just, it made everything just a breeze. It really, not perfect though. You could still run into some times where if you weren't keeping track of your monitors or field conditions, you could be digging in too deep, and then you start to make mud. And that's what we don't want to have happen with these. You do not want to be plowing the soil with those. Like you said, just move the debris out of the way. And then the other thing too to point out on these wheels, they're spoked, and again that allows the mud. Won't cake in there as much if you're. So this tractor, just like the red one that's tracked, we use on our grain carts. And this has a little bit wider stance. I'm just waiting for the monitor to come.
Power up, just like a computer booting up, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And then, and the reason I even mention that too is because in order to even unfold or move the planter parts, we have to have
the system's got to be going.
Yep.
Yep.
We like the track style of tractor for, like I said, for the grain cart. If you had wheels, it'd be out a little too wide, and you have to wonder about if you're going to bump into the semi truck or anything else. And then, like we said, it carries across the ground very nice. Usually in the mornings, we'll turn on the vacuums, let that oil start circulating, and get everything warmed up. You know, another thing, even it sounds minimal, but it's just even checking on tires on the planter, especially. You know, you wouldn't want to have a low tire and be out in the middle of the field and then have it work itself off the bead and then create, you know, a 2 to 3 hour ordeal.
And you got a delay, right?
Yeah. Yep. So it's just things like that always looking around, maybe even loose bolts.
So with the equipment this size, do you drive it on the road to where you're going mostly? Or
Yep. We'll drive it pretty much everywhere we go. We don't haul this rig really at all. We will also try to keep in mind these tracks on here. Tracks don't like to be driven on the road very long.
I would imagine.
And so, you know, if we were to go to a furthest away field, you know, 40 miles, 30 miles away, hopefully we would do another field on the way first. Yeah. Or take a little...
Work your way back, kind of got to map that out a little bit.
Yeah.
So once you start planting, like it's go time and it's great conditions.
You know, hopefully around 9 o'clock, you know, be heading or getting into the field and start the day. Now, usually at least 9 to 9, so, you know, 12 hours hopefully.
Just working half days then. 12 hours.
Something like that.
You got 40 more acres to get done, you want to get it done.
Just got to go. Yep. There's been a few times where we would plant soybeans with one of the corn planters, and we'd both be in the same field and just go and get it done. But my brother Aaron, he'll help and get some seed treated, so he'll have that ready. If I have to treat seed, I'm fine doing that too, but then of course that just takes a little longer to get to the field. But there will be times where my wife will help get the girls to daycare, school, and so then I can head to the field even earlier. Might have 30 bags of seed or totes, mini bulks ready to go, and then maybe that was a 1.9 or 1.7 maturity. Well, if it gets late, we can't plant all those. So if we only use 20 of those, or if we had 5 or 6 left over, if it was already treated, you can't return it or dump those. And so it's a fungicide treatment, and it basically where we saw seed treatment pay off was probably back to even 2009 or 2009, 10. We were really wet in the spring one year there, and something happened to the soybeans called damping off, and so they came up a little bit, and then they just died. And there was just enough disease from that cold, wet soil.
Just conditions that really made it conducive for that fungus to grow and kill it.
we haven't had to really replant very much ever. If we do, it might be due to other issues. Maybe the ground was too dry and they didn't come up, or but then we've gone in sometimes where we thought the soybeans weren't coming up and then put more out there. Well, then no, they were coming up. And I guess we had plenty. So it's really it's an educated guess sometimes. But obviously we're always looking at a window, time frame. Our whole thought is if you have it in the ground, at least it has a chance to get growing. Some of our, not every field is treated equal, and so if it's a average type of field, meaning the yield goal is going to be about average, we may push a little quicker to get out there. The fields that have the highest yield goal, those we make sure that conditions are almost perfect, because we want to set everything up to be just right. And fortunately for us, a lot of those are closer to our home base operation, and so we see those. We're back and forth near that area.
Track them a lot more closely and accurately.
The most important things on all of this is communication, and that's really no different than family operation, or if it wasn't a family operation type of business or farm operation. Always work to be done, but at the same time, the more we can intertwine all of that. Obviously, it's hard. You don't want your work to overcome everything else at home, but it is unique in terms of a family farm and ranch operation. It's always a challenge, but I think it's only more of a challenge if you make it out to be, and it's all worked out well.
Taylor rides just as well as any